Maniacs. It's your favorite Maniacs, the music ones.
It is.
We're Sight After Dark out
Hello.
of Brooklyn, New York. I'm Dan Berg.
I'm Sifa Graffiti.
So today, we're talking about
The one and only.
those Australian boys
Uh-huh.
that taught us it's a long way to the top.
If you want to rock and roll.
And sometimes you got to break the speed limit. But not on just any highway.
Not on anyone.
Only on a highway.
The hell. Meow.
Yeah. So
That's the sound a devil makes. Meow.
so we're talking about Simon and Garfunkel. Obviously, we're talking about the legendary acdc.
The legends themselves.
They're literally like any word that you want to use to describe a big rock band, big famous rock band, like they are that.
Yeah. They taught a lot of us how to rock, how to love rock, how to appreciate it, you know, how to get together and be one. We got so much stuff to say about these guys. We love them.
Sometimes you just gotta let there be rock.
There's so many things.
There's so
you could
many.
say, yeah.
We're gonna talk about those Munchkin young boys.
Yeah, we don't want to get into too many dirty deeds. Like, you know.
Damn, how long can we keep that going? Yeah, no more dirty deeds. I left all my TNT at home.
That's right.
And my electrical sockets aren't high voltage enough.
Yeah, they're not high because they're only meant for those about to rock. Like they're not.
Salute.
Yeah, we salute those.
Okay, you get the point. We're nerds. Anyway, so all right, ACDC.
Uh-huh.
We gotta bring it back to Scotland.
That's right. Home of the unicorns.
Yes, the second best thing to ever come out of Scotland besides the Young family.
Wait, we got David Byrne.
That's true. That happened later. Whoa. That sounded kind of cool. Okay, so the Young family, there was a lot of them.
Yes.
There was like 10 brothers and sisters.
A tribe.
But I think there's only like 4 that are really going to come up here.
Yeah.
We got Margaret.
Right. The seamstress.
We got George.
Yes. The easy beater.
Yes.
That doesn't sound right. I'm sorry.
No, I like it. We got Malcolm.
Oh, man. The ox. I'm going to call Malcolm the ox. I think I want to.
Okay.
Yeah. The bass. Well, he's the bass, but he's the ox.
He's the bass, but he doesn't play bass. Very important distinction. Mm-hmm. And then we got Angus.
Yeah.
So, the way that I understood it, they were all in Scotland. Mm-hmm. They were born in Scotland. They were growing up in Scotland.
Weaving kilts.
Weaving kilts and playing bagpipes.
That's what you do.
And that's all you do there. And one winter, it was like the worst winter ever for Scotland. There was like 8 feet of snow on the ground or something.
Insane.
And there was some like UK like program where they would like pay you to resettle to Australia.
Uh-huh.
And the, I guess, patriarch of the Young family was like, you know what? That sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
I'm sick of this snow shit. He looks out. He like can't even see out of his window because it's all snow. You're like, yeah, the government's going to pay me to move to Australia? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
He'll do it. I mean, my goodness, 8 feet.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
So I don't remember how old, the kids were when they moved to to Australia, but they moved from Scotland to Australia to Sydney, right?
Yeah. And they were young enough to be aware because they were like, well, we had to learn how to talk like them, how to act like them and stuff like that. So they weren't old enough to not give a shit.
They were old enough to feel like outsiders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know. I mean, they said they were just always a musical family.
Yeah. And they figured that everybody grew up like that, like just interested in music and hearing it all the time and stuff. Like their sister used to bring home like records and stuff from all the greats, that were rocking the world over here in America.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I remember I saw Malcolm say something like, yeah, like we used to have like holiday parties and we just like play around the piano and blah, blah, blah. And we didn't know that people didn't do that all the time. You know what I mean? So they were just always a musical family. The first one that really went for it was actually George.
Yes.
So it was the Easy Beat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Easy Beats.
So he was part of the Easy Beats, which became a big band in Australia.
Yes.
And then they eventually made it over to America even. Like they had they had a song that went like number 16 or something.
Yeah, they did well England, and then they did well over here. They got on the top 40 somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you got older brother George, who's already, he's music from the beginning. He's going for it and is basically an inspiration for his two younger brothers, Malcolm and Angus. And they're like, oh, well, if he could do it, like...
Yeah, and that's where it always pays to kind of be the younger sibling. You know what I'm saying? You see
the
sorry older one.
I agree with that.
You know, you just see everybody ahead and you're just like, well, probably even from a baby, you're like, well, if they can walk, I can walk.
Yeah.
I can walk faster.
If they can drink beer, why can't I drink beer? But no. Okay, so they're in Australia and... Angus dropped out of school at like 15, something like that. He was just like, yeah, I'm not, this is not for me. This school life is not for me.
Yeah. That's also a time when that's not frowned upon. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I didn't go to school because I got a job. Like, I've heard that from people that are only like 50 now. Like, that just kind of ended. Yeah,
and especially like, I mean, they grew up poor in Scotland. Yeah. So it wasn't like crazy. I don't think their dad probably did a similar thing. I mean, I don't know that for sure because I didn't look that far into it, but I don't think their dad like went to college and shit.
Yeah, you would think if you can work with your hands or if you have like some type of smarts and stuff like that, then just go. Like, you know.
Exactly. So what they wanted to do, they wanted to start a good old rock and roll band. And it was funny because Malcolm was like, we just wanted to start like a just down and dirty fucking rock and roll band. Like that's what they wanted to do. And they did it. There's a lot of hiccups on the way, but they did it.
I'm accenting.
So Malcolm and Angus, it was funny. So actually George came home from tour.
Yeah.
And this was after Malcolm and Angus decided that they wanted to do it. And he was just kind of like, oh shit, my younger brothers are kind of tearing it up.
Yeah, they were playing like, I mean, like look at Angus's fingers. Like, you know what I mean? They were like rocking their guitars. And he's like, wow, like, they're pretty good, but they could play. Like, I feel like that meant more than anything because it's like once you could play, we could just put you out there. Like,
right. And it's funny because they always like Malcolm and Angus. Apparently, they used to fight all the time.
Yes.
So their parents are like, "You're starting a band together? I'll give it a week." You know, here we are 50 years later. But yeah, so they were like, all right, whatever, go start your band. So they always wanted to just be like a down and gritty, like rock and roll band. That was their thing. So they got some people around them, you know, drums, bass, whatever. They had a singer, something Evans? Dave Evans.
Who they hated. But they're pretty polite guys, so they would never say hate. But like, if like you hear Malcolm talk about him and he's just like, yeah, you know, he's up there and he's going on with his makeup and he's blowing kisses.
I feel like we literally watched the same interview because I was just watching that today. But no, that's the thing that's so funny. So Malcolm and Angus were always like, we're trying to do just down and gritty, like rock and roll. You know what I mean? And then you got Dave.
Yes.
He's wearing makeup. He's all in the glam shit.
He's, definitely one of the glam rockers. And they're like, what? He's like, well, we were really growing to not like that. Like, you know.
Yeah. And apparently he didn't get along with their manager well.
Oh, man.
And things like that. Like, it just wasn't going to work out with him. Yeah. But this is the thing, like, especially like, I mean, I've never even been to Australia, but I'm imagining, like, there's not a crazy amount of people there. And the amount of people that actually want to dedicate their lives to starting a band is probably not huge.
Yes.
So at some point, it's like, okay, well, he's the one that's willing to do it and be in the band, so we got to stick with him.
Right.
But they were always kind of like, I don't think this is really the guy for what we're trying to do.
Yeah, definitely. And, like... you see the images of him performing with them, and it's just like it doesn't gel. Like,
it's just different.
He belongs somewhere else. He belongs on the LA Strip.
Yeah, for real. And like 10 years later.
Yeah.
But there was the right guy for them.
Yes.
He was around.
Uh-huh.
And all right. So this guy, his name was Bon Scott. Mm-hmm. I just found out his real name was Ronald.
Yes.
And I think it's really funny that I'm just going to call him Bonald Scott. Shout out to Bonald. We love that guy. So he was just had a very similar story to the brothers.
Yeah.
because he was also born in Scotland,
right,
and moved to Australia when he was a kid.
Yes,
and he was really about that rock and roll lifestyle.
Oh man, yeah, he's the poster boy for it.
Yeah, like when you think of like the rock and roll lifestyle, he did all of that shit.
Yeah.
Before, like, first of all, he was like 10 years older than Angus.
Yeah.
Like, he was noticeably older than the rest of them.
Yeah.
So he had already been around the block many, many times. Like, he was doing circles around the block, you know what I mean? Like, he had been in jail. Like, he fucking, like, assaulted a cop. Like, he got in motorcycle accidents. Like, and he had all these tattoos. And, like, back in the day, like, everyone's got tattoos now.
Yes.
It's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, it's like, if you had tattoos, like, you either were in the military or you were, like, a fucking criminal.
Yeah, you're a very scary person.
And Bond wasn't in the military. Okay? So...
He was the captain of the Hell Bus. That's what he was. That's the rank he had.
He was driving that bus on the highway.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
But... So, okay, so they didn't like Dave. They wanted to... And I don't even remember, like, did they see Bond somewhere else before he joined? I don't remember that part of the story.
No. No. They didn't see him before he joined. I believe they were looking around and shopping for people, and I think... Didn't he come to them, or am I confusing him with...
I don't think he came to them.
Okay.
Because the way that I heard it recently is that they knew that just by, like, his attitude and lifestyle, they were like, okay, this guy would be a really good fit. And then they heard him sing.
Yeah,
And they were like, oh, this is the guy.
Yeah.
So I don't think Bond went to them.
Okay, yeah. I remember that. But I don't remember, like, whether they were, like, searching or whatever. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think maybe just, like, you know...
I've never heard of this band.
Who are we talking about again? No, I think one of their friends like knew him or something. Because again, you know, there's only so much of a music scene, and he was in the music scene in other bands, so he was around, and people in the music scene would have known him. And it's funny because so eventually they were like, all right, Bond's the singer. Bond joined the band.
Yeah,
he was the guy. He was the fucking guy to really encapsulate the sound that they were going for and, you know, display it, which is what a good frontman does.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I heard, so George comes home, and Malcolm and Angus are like, yeah, we got a new singer, and George is just like, this guy? Like, are you sure?
Like, and I know this guy. I've heard of this guy.
Is it this guy that just got out of jail? And Malcolm and Angus were like, no, it's this guy. Like, it's for sure this guy. And they were not wrong.
Right.
They knew it.
They were very, very correct. And, you know, what's really interesting, too, Bond was like a total visionary as well in terms of like where he wanted the album to go. And George was actually producing acdc's first few records. And Bond actually did not want George to produce the album that he was actually going to be on before he died. He actually felt like George had taken acdc to the biggest peak that they could have gone with him, and for them to break into like this market, the US market,
and he was right,
and more international, they needed another producer, and
he was right. Wow, I didn't even know that part. That's actually really cool.
Yeah,
shout out to Bonald.
Uh-huh.
So now they got so here's the thing. So obviously we got the three of them, the two Anguses, the two Youngs.
Yep.
Bon, and then we got drums and bass. But this is the thing with acdc. This is not a drum and bass band.
No.
Like,
no.
If you're looking for sick drum beats and dope bass lines, acdc is not the band for you.
No.
This is a guitar band.
Yes.
Through and through.
Rhythm and lead.
So, honestly, like, we're not going to be talking about the drums and the bass too much.
No.
It just is what it is with this band.
But shout out to Phil on the drums because he's been there forever.
Shout out to Phil. We'll get to him later for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they went through a few bass players before eventually, I think Cliff was who they like really settled on as like their permanent one.
Right.
So they're in Australia. Now they have the band together, and they're recording, and they're putting out albums, and like basically every single album they put out, they just slowly got bigger and bigger.
Yep.
They were touring more and more. They were doing bigger and bigger venues, and they became known as like the fucking bad boys of Australia rock.
Yeah.
Because they were legit about it.
Yeah.
They fucking partied.
They did. And they partied hard. And they all moved into a house together. And they were like, everything went down in that house, which was crazy. We didn't really talk about the band name, but if you're fans, of course, you know the band name why it is the way it is. Like,
should we talk about Margaret now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's go for it.
Because she had a huge amount to do with a lot of their success, really.
Yeah. That's what I'm finding out through my research. Like, acdc is a family. Like, it's not
100%.
about, like, just two guys in a studio and 100%.
Stuff. So should we talk about the name or the outfit first?
The name. The name.
Because they're actually related.
They are.
Okay, so... The name thing is actually really funny. So literally they were all throwing around names or whatever, and they couldn't think of anything. And Margaret was like using her sewing machine, and she like saw on the back of the machine that it said ACDC, which means alternating current / direct current, in electrical terms. And she just said that, and they were all kind of like, huh. Kind of like that.
Yep.
So they went with it. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing about the name is they didn't realize the other meaning of that name. Yes. And I saw the interview with Malcolm. He's like, yeah, so we decided it was AC/DC, and then, like a few weeks later, like we were in a cab or something telling the cab driver about the band name, and they were like, AC/DC? What are you, gay or something? And they were like, what are you talking about? And he was like, AC/DC, like a tranny. Like, what are you, you're a bunch of trannies in the band? And they were just like, do we have to change the name now? They didn't, obviously, but
they did not.
I thought that was hilarious.
That is funny.
But
yeah, so they got the name like that, and then
speaking of Margaret's sewing machine, what happened with the sewing machine?
So now they needed something else, right? Some shock value. It's the 70s. It's rock and roll. There's a lot of shock stuff going on.
And the glam shit was not theirs.
It was not.
So they needed something different.
Exactly. So they didn't want to be Kiss, and they didn't want to be Peter Gabriel. Like, they didn't want to wear a wolf head on stage and stuff. So
they didn't want to be Jethro Tull and play flutes.
They're like, what else could we do? And these aren't like huge, big, bulky guys. So Margaret says to Angus, well, I think your school uniform will fit you. Why don't you just put it on and give it a try? Now this is where, like, I think this is like some funny shit. This is some huge family shit. Like, if you have like a good amount of cousins or like family members, if you've ever like sat around, jokes just fly around for no reason.
Yeah.
Right? And then like little silly things happen. So like I feel like this is one of those moments. Like, she was just like kind of joking in a way.
Yeah, wear your fucking schoolboy outfit.
Throw it on.
He's like, yeah.
He's like, I'm actually gonna put it on. He puts it on, and the rest is history. Can you say that?
Kind of. I do want to go back to something, though, because I actually found out about... I don't know how true this is, but this is something that I heard, and if it's true, it's actually really kind of sad.
What?
Why they're so short.
What?
I heard that, like, when they were growing up, like, their water was, like, contaminated with lead and shit.
Like, it's a possibility.
I don't know. Obviously, I don't know that for sure, but I saw a story that was like, yeah, that's partly why they're so short. I'm like, oh, that's kind of fucked up.
So why are other people so short?
I don't know. Bad genes.
Why is Prince short?
Lead. No. Zeppelin? No. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but whatever.
Me neither.
So, but they are super short.
They're very small.
Angus and Malcolm are just munchkins of men. Like, I heard that they vacation on the Yellow Brick Road.
You are so silly. I thought you were going somewhere with that. I was like, where?
Is that rude? But no, like, literally, Angus is like 5'2", Malcolm's like 5'3".
Yeah.
They're very small.
Very
but that's
small.
Also why you can wear your fucking schoolboy uniform as a grown adult into your 70s. Like, and that's the only reason it's even kind of like cool in a way. Because if he was like a grown ass man wearing a schoolboy uniform, it'd be like, what the?
No.
But when you're just this tiny guy, it's like, oh, and you're like, Angus's stage presence. To me, always felt like a wind-up toy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just... and then you just let him go. So, like, the combination of that with him being small with the uniform, it just... You couldn't have planned that.
Yeah.
You know?
And I remember, like, as a little girl first seeing that, like, I do, like, because those videos would come on, like, VH1 and stuff like that all the time. And I remember the first thing saying is, like, the uniform. Like, laughing at the uniform. One, because I wore one forever. So, like, it just stuck out to me. But the fact that he's, like, wilding out on stage in that uniform, like, I mean... that was great. Like,
yeah, it's so cool and it's so classic that Angus, because of, well, he would have been a big part of the band obviously because he rips a guitar.
Yeah.
But him in that uniform, he basically became the mascot of the band.
Yeah, yeah. And isn't that funny when he's like, he and his brother are like the brains. You know what I mean? They're like the founders, and it's just like, that's just so interesting and so great the way it is. And everything, it's almost like everything he did was calculated, even into the guitar he plays, because he was like, well, I had to pick that one because I couldn't get anyone bigger because I would break a hip if I was like playing that the way he plays on stage and stuff like that. And I remember wanting that guitar too.
The SG?
Yes. And I remember, I think I said it to you and you were like, the one with the devil horns? And I was just like, wait.
I mean, that is kind of what it is.
That is what it looks like. And I was like, I don't know if I want it.
Okay. So, all right. So, yeah. So that's how the band name happened. That's how the schoolboy uniform happened. That's how all this happened. So now you got Bond, you got the boys. Everything's going well. Every album they put out, they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And they're finally starting to, like, crack into other markets. Yeah. And, like, I heard, like, their friends were saying, like, it was clear they were too big for just Australia.
Yeah, because it became like girls were chasing them and stuff like that. And, like, they didn't want to be like the Beatles, you know what I mean? So they didn't want to be like a teeny bopper band and stuff, which is why I love them even more, you know?
Because they're all about that down and gritty rock and roll. That's the whole thing. They were like, they weren't saying, like, we'd want to do anything. They were just like, we want to play rock and roll. Yeah. Harder than anyone around. Yep. And that's what they did. Yeah. And I got a, well, side note, this is actually, I almost forgot about that. Their songs are so, the power in their songs is the simplicity. And they're not doing, like, well, this guitar solos are great. But, like, the rhythm guitar and, like, all, it's not too crazy. It's just, you know, it's rock to its bare bones. And it's almost like the same idea of punk in a way, but it's not punk music. No. But it's really cool, like, because it's so simple, it leads to things like, I remember this while we're doing this, like, Highway to Hell is the first song that I ever tried to play on guitar when I was a little kid. Cool. Because I remember listening to acdc, and I had listened to other music before, but I'd never played anything. But I remember hearing Highway to Hell, and I'm just like, 1, 2, 3... 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, I feel like I could do that. You know what? That doesn't seem so hard. Yeah. So my parents had like a shitty like nylon string guitar, like just in the back room somewhere, and I just grabbed it. I'm like, let me see if I could do. And like that is the first time I ever played guitar. Cool. Because of Angus. Yay. And Malcolm and all the boys from Down Under. So great. I remember I was watching some interview and they were like, well, the power of acdc is like you were saying simplistic and stuff, but they were like, it's like the unison too, because it's like the whole band playing a groove at the same time, and that's their strength, as opposed to other bands where he's like, you would have like 4 different components. Like you were waiting to hear, let's put Zeppelin out there. You're waiting to hear what Robert's going to do separately from Jimmy, what John is going to do separately from John, like, you know, so, but like with acdc, it's like you're singing all the hooks at the same time. Yes. The groove is beating at and you're all together like with them, and like that's their power, like unison. Like. Yes, and that's a great point, because it's something I was thinking about all day today. Is that's also a reason why Malcolm is so important. Yes, because he holds everything down. Yes, like he leads the rhythm section in a way that I didn't understand for like a long time, because I was so, you know, distracted by all the awesome shit that Angus was doing. Yes, but I'm like, oh no, like Malcolm really holds it down. And the other thing about them is like the chanting vocals for all the choruses. Yeah. Like the choruses come in the whole highway to hell, and it's like all of them singing at the same time, and that's what it feels like kind of a chant. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I've never seen acdc live, unfortunately, but I imagine it's just so easy to sing along to all of their songs. There you go. Because of that. Yeah. Because even just listening to the record, you feel like it's a bunch of people saying it. Yeah. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It's true. That's true. And you want to be part of it. Like exactly. That's really cool about them. Yeah, so they come to the U.S. and
the album that really does well in the US. Is one of my favorite album covers of all times, even though it does have devil horns on it. But like, I think Angus looks great. I like how his lips look super full there. This kind of like this long shot. Like, I really, really love it. So yep, it's that Highway to Hell album.
So like we were saying, so every album they put out, they just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it basically culminated at that time in Highway to Hell, which was like, it became big in places beside Australia. Like they were really on the cusp of being one of the biggest rock bands in the world.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, is that Bon, aka Bonald, really was on that Highway to Hell.
He really was.
Because he did not make it to see another album.
No, he didn't. They actually thought they were too hard for America. Check that out.
Really?
Yeah. That's some good shit. But yeah, he drank way too much. Like, even his mom was like, you can't really talk to somebody when they're at that point. Like, you know what I'm saying? They either got to bottom themselves out or die. And it's unfortunate, but that's what alcohol does to you. Either, like, takes you to your lowest point or it kills you. Like,
yep.
That's it.
Yeah, but like we were saying from the beginning, I mean, he really lived that rock and roll shit. Like, he was not lying. Like, this was not his persona.
Right.
Like, they were saying he would literally be drunk, but when they had the house together, like, he would literally be drunk till he passes out. He would wake up in the morning and just immediately grab the next bottle.
Yeah.
And that was his fucking life. And he really did that. And you could only do that for so long.
Yeah.
So literally, they're on the cusp of the biggest success that they could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And their lead singer dies.
Wow.
And this is the most insane part of their story, honestly, because he dies. It must have been such a, it must have been terrible for all of them. They lost their friend, they lost their singer. It's like, what the hell are we gonna do? Mm-hmm. They're debating, like, should we even keep doing this? Should we break up? You know what I mean? And that's the thing, like, it's like similar to what we were talking about, like Zeppelin. It's like, yes, you're losing a big part of your band, but you're losing, like, a family member. Mm-hmm. It's not just like, oh, yeah, we'll get someone else. Like, no, like, this is someone you've been basically living with for years. It's like, it's hard to just get over, you can't just get over that.
Yeah, and it's like their family was involved with him, too. Like, they even show, like, the sister talk about him all these years later, and even she was almost crying, like, still. Like, so, yeah, they were, like, a close-knit, and it's crazy because that translates in their music. Like, it's all a family, we're all together doing one thing, just like we were just saying about the stuff. But yeah, so now they got to decide, well, what do we do? Do we hang it up, or are we fucked up people if we find somebody else? Like, what happens now?
Well, what I heard is that it was actually Bon's parents that said to them, hey, you got to keep going because that's what Bon would have wanted. I
feel like they're telling the truth in that one. You know what I mean? Like, he just seems like the kind of guy who's like, you're going to let this stop you? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, they said, and like I said, I think we watched the same exact thing. They literally had, like, his mom, like, Bon's mom, saying, like, all he ever wanted to do was be a rock and roll singer. So it's like, he did that, and they got the band to this level. He's just like, you're just going to stop?
Right.
Like, I don't think he would have wanted that.
No, I feel like if we could make, like, a weird, quirky movie, and we put him, like, in another realm, he would be doing that. He would be, like, trying to talk to them from another realm, like, don't let this stop you. Yeah. If, like, especially, like, if they couldn't hear him, he would be like, that'd be a cool, like, kind of thing, like, right?
And they can't hear anything.
They're just like, oh. Yeah. He's like, don't stop!
So then they need a new singer. They decided they're going to go on. Yeah. But not a replacement. Right. Just a new singer. Yeah. They don't need someone to sound exactly like Bon. They just need the right person. Yeah. So apparently, before Bon died, he had seen this band that was led by a singer named Brian Johnson. Dun, 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 dun. And legend has it is that the first time that Bon saw him perform, he was suffering from appendicitis. Uh-oh. And because Brian had such pain in his appendix while he was performing, he was literally, like, on the ground, like, squirming and screaming. Oh. And Bon was like, wow, this guy has some stage presence. That's really, you've heard about that. Yes. Yeah, and that's so funny to me. It's like, because, yeah, I mean, if you're in the crowd, I guess you wouldn't know that he's really in pain. Like, this is not the show. Like, he's really fucked up, but he never stopped singing. Right. So Bon's like, this guy's wild. So even before Bon died, he had said something to the rest of the band about this guy, Brian Johnson. He was like, oh, yeah, I saw this great singer, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure it was kind of, like, in passing. Like, they weren't, like, really good friends or anything. Mm-hmm. But, like, yeah, I saw this guy, Brian Johnson, was great. So eventually, I don't know, like, I don't remember exactly how, I guess he had an audition.
He had an audition, and he was like a fan of them anyway, because he had liked how, Bon was handling things on stage and stuff, and all the stuff that he'd heard about ACDC, the uniform, and just, he's like, Angus just wilding out on stage, and like, you cut to a clip of Angus, and he's literally like on his side doing like a spin and stuff, so, so he loved it, and I think still to this day, like, everybody considers him like the biggest AC/DC fan in the world, because he really like wanted to join the band. Like,
that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So it all worked out. It all worked out for Brian. It worked out for the rest of the band as well as it could, because Brian joined the band. This is what I heard. They had been working on like the chords for "You Shook Me." And they didn't have any words for it yet, and that when they decided that Brian was going to be the guy, he basically like, okay, yeah, we've been working on this, and he wrote all the lyrics in like 15 minutes.
Insane.
And they were like, all right, this is the guy. So they work on the new album, and remember, they were right on the cusp of their biggest success when Bon died.
Yep.
So they're like, all right, we got a new album, and this is something I was thinking about. Like, if you're just a fan of AC/DC, right, and their singer just died, and you don't. This is before the internet. You don't know who Brian Johnson is. You may have heard, like, oh, yeah, they got this Brian Johnson guy. And you're like, what the fuck? What's going on? So you have no idea what the music is going to be like until the album comes out. Mm-hmm. So the album comes out. Mm-hmm. Back in Black. Mm-hmm. And not only is it their biggest album, it's the second best-selling album of all time. Only behind Thriller by Michael Jackson. And I didn't know that until recently. I knew it was obviously a huge album. I didn't know it was the second best-selling album ever.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I figured as much, though, because this is huge. AC/DC, everybody loves these guys. People love these guys, and they don't even know they love these guys. Like,
Yeah, basically. So that's just insane. That's one of the most insane stories in rock, period. That you lose your lead singer that you've had all this success with. You get another guy, and now you're even bigger than you ever were. Like, you never even missed a beat.
Yeah.
And that whole album goes so hard.
Oh my gosh, it's such a great album. And to me, like, just like, I've watched a couple of Angus interviews, and just knowing him from, like, growing up and just watching him on TV, and being a kid, when you see somebody like that on stage, I mean, that's right up your alley as a child.
Yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying? So, I've always, but I loved him. But I feel like a story like that couldn't have happened to two better guys, I feel like, because they've got like such like this kind of humble, like just kind of laid back, like honest, integral thing in terms of the music, in terms of how to approach the music and how they want it to hit you. Like, they're not gimmicky, they're not just trying to sell, they're not always constantly trying to change their clothes to make you say, to be like, look at me and stuff like that. They just want you to hear the music. And for them to like experience such a tragedy, to be such honest rockers, to experience a tragedy like that, but then to have the turnover be so like divine, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, couldn't have happened to like cooler people, I think.
And it's so crazy. I just imagine being a fan of theirs at the time.
Yeah.
And that album comes out, and you're like, oh my God, this was fucking great. Like, I had no idea what to expect. Like, Bon dies, and they just came out just swinging.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, there's so many hits on that album. There's so many just classic songs on that album. And it's like, they just kill it. They just go so hard. It's what you're saying, like with not only with their image, but also with the music. They are just like, no, like, this is what we do. We don't give a shit about anything else. Like, we're going to do what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And they've never switched up.
No, they didn't bring on some rappers. You know what I'm saying? They didn't try to get into the jazz part of it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they didn't go trip hop rock on us. They didn't get braids in their hair.
No.
And dye it red. No, I'm just kidding. But speaking of, but they've experienced a lot of shit. And just like any regular band, they had their peaks and they for sure had their valleys, right?
Yeah.
Because they go hard, they go high, they climb, and then everything just starts kind of.
It even, I want to back up a little bit, because even just like the subject matter of their songs was just the most rock and roll shit possible.
That's true too.
You know what I mean? They're not even really singing love songs.
No. They're not going to put a ballad in there.
They're not going to
sneak a ballad in there.
Yeah. That's just not what they do. They never tried to act like what they were doing. they never try to act like anything they're not, which is really a theme with this podcast. It's like, if you're trying to be a legendary musician, all you got to do is be authentic to you.
Yeah.
If people respond, that's great. If they don't, you don't fucking switch up. Like, don't do that.
Sometimes, like, I go in, like, on the roof and I'll, like, chill in my house and I'll put on a classic rock playlist and, like, ACDC will pop up. I'll look at the list and I'll be like, oh, gosh, do I want to hear this song again? But then it comes on and I'm like...
You're like, yeah, I do. Yes, yeah, I fucking do. But so something else. So, like I was saying before, so they had the idea of, like, the stripped down, just bare bonesness of rock is the same idea as what punk rock was.
Yeah.
But... they were before punk rock, and they also lasted through punk rock.
Yeah.
Because they never considered themselves to be punk rock.
Right.
And that's not what they were going for. They were always just trying to be AC/DC.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, they started before punk rock. I mean, obviously punk rock is still around. But as, like, a commercial, like, phenomenon, like Sex Pistols, The Clash, all that, you know, like, late 70s is really the peak. Mm-hmm. And they just slid right through that shit. Like, it did not faze them at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I think was so cool.
I think it's very cool. I think it's also cool that they didn't... I mean, everybody likes to get an award, but they didn't care too much for the accolades either and stuff like that. That was the cool thing about it. You know, so... that's kind of the best part about them. Like, they just stick to their formula. And fortunately for us music listeners, their formula is rock and roll. Mm-hmm. Like, you can find them in the 1950s. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, Angus basically wants to be Chuck Berry, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's even taken his moves and shit
to the next level, and that's what you do as, like, the son of that person. Exactly. You know?
If you did it the same way, it's lame. I've already seen someone do that. But if you take it, it's like with Zeppelin. Like, if you take it and you boost it up to the next level, you're a legend.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? What did they say? They said I just read this. Good artists borrow and great artists
steal. I think Tarantino said that, didn't he?
Probably. I don't know. I just saw it just like yesterday written down somewhere. And it was like a joke, but I loved it, though.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. They were just always real. Even like the songs that aren't about drugs and like girls and shit. They're just talking about like life as a band, which is not super easy.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people, like, if you're not in a band, you don't really think about all the shit that goes on behind the scenes.
Right.
Like, you got multiple people, you got multiple egos, different people having different work ethics. You know, you all have to be on the same page.
Right.
You know, you're getting screwed over by promoters, blah, 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 blah. And fun Side After Dark facts. So we have a song on our first album called Rockstar.
Yeah.
That basically, if y'all don't know, in the hip hop and like rap community, a big thing is to like take somebody's beat and like make it your own.
Yeah.
And we did that with the song. And while we were doing it, we basically were like, we want this to be a modern day It's a Long Way to the Top.
Yeah.
If you want to rock and roll.
Yeah.
So if you listen to our album, the song Rockstar, think about that if you ever hear it, and it'll probably bring you another perspective. So that's a little sad trivia for you.
Yeah, we are on the same page, because I was just going to mention that song, like, and the things that they do to music, like the bagpipes.
Yeah.
Who knew you needed that?
Na, 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 na.
Like, it's you even more hype. It's like, man, I really needed to hear those bagpipes in this rock and roll
Scotsmen. Oh, I just like Bond's so Scottish. His last name is literally Scott.
Oh, that's dope.
He was born with bagpipes.
Oh my god.
He was born wearing a kilt. Damn.
Wow.
Yo, shout out to Bond. For real.
Yeah, man.
Rest in peace, the legend.
Exactly.
He's driving that bus all the way down the highway.
All the way. I remember as a kid, I knew AC/DC with Brian. Like, you know what I mean? Like the first video you see and stuff like that. But then when they used to show the older videos, like on like MTV, not MTV Classics, VH1 Classics and stuff like that. And I would see like Bond. I'm like, well, who's this guy?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, he doesn't sing like the other guy.
Yeah.
I like the new guy better. But like now as an adult, like, well, what a great voice on Bond. And like like Dirty Deeds, like, I mean, you can just hear like and they're like, see me around, like he goes I mean, it's beautiful. And even the way he sings, we're talking like a slim guy who doesn't like look super gritty and bluesy, kind of. I'm just gonna segue a little bit. You know how like Rory looks like he could sing gritty, Rory Gallagher, like Bond doesn't like look it. Mm-hmm. And then when that comes out for me to see him in this video, that kind of looks effortless too. So he's like a really 100%. Right, like that's like a rock and roller right there.
Right, and that's the thing that's so cool is that Brian and Bon can both be so different and have their own styles, but both be so good and both be so perfect for the band.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is really a testament to the instruments as well.
Yeah.
And how good Malcolm and Angus and the boys are at like creating a vibe and a sound.
Yeah.
That hard rockin' shit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still a shock, but I'm not surprised that Brian wrote all those lyrics in like 15 minutes, because apparently that's what the Young brothers do. They set the music. Like that's what they did with Bond, like right before he died. They're like, okay, well, we got all the music set. Like, we'll see you next week or whatever. But imagine, like, that's all you had to do. You walked in there and in your band, like, they're like, well, we got the music set for you. And you got these rockin' riffs and shit. So the onus is on you. Yeah. But those riffs are like catapults into like songmanship and writing and stuff like that, like
absolutely
right away. So that's I keep saying formula, but what a great formula.
Yeah, and I mean they really rode it into the sunset, So Back in Black comes out.
Yeah.
Second biggest album of all time. Their biggest album, obviously. They follow it up, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You.
Yeah.
Also a huge album.
Yep.
They put out another couple of albums that don't do as well.
Yeah.
Again, peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
And then they come back in like 1990 with, what was it, Razor's Edge?
Razor's Edge.
Which has a song called Thunderstruck.
Oh, man.
Which not only is it a great song, but it's also one of the most fun drinking games because of that song. Do you know about the drinking game?
I do not.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's this game. It's called Thunderstruck. Basically, you'll be in a circle.
Yeah.
You'll all have a drink. And every time they say thunder, you start drinking. And the next time they say thunder, you stop and the next person starts.
Okay.
So for most of the song, it's like thunder. So you don't really get a lot.
Yeah.
But then every now and then it'll be like, you've been thunderstruck. And then it'll go into a guitar solo. So that one person gets fucked. It has to be drinking the entire guitar solo.
And
they're just like, oh God, how much longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like simultaneously the best and worst drinking game ever, but it's a good time.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that sounds like a good time.
Which, I just realized now, like, they would probably be really proud of that.
Yeah.
They would be like, yeah, people are drinking to our shit, yeah.
I think so too.
But, I mean, not that it was all party with them. I mean, at some point, the alcoholism got a little out of control with Malcolm as well, and he had to go into rehab, and he had, like, their nephew took over for him for, like, a tour and stuff like that.
Right.
But he eventually came back.
Yes,
and they just kept going, and they really just never stopped.
No. I mean, Malcolm literally had to die. Like, he worked until his death, and that's amazing. Very, very amazing. And to watch him in interviews, I know that's got to be, like, so sad and hurtful. But like I said, I just watched an interview with Angus from like last year, and he seems pretty bright and like happy, you know what I'm saying, and talking about like sitting in front of a big old Marshall stack and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like, but I feel like you lose Malcolm and it's really, really sad, but Malcolm kind of died around a time where everybody was losing people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he just went as kind of like a caravan up there. So it's like I feel like with any that's some sort of solace, I think, for the band. Because like when I look at them in the interview, they seem very well. Like they've handled that well, like sometimes you'll see an old married couple, one person dies and they don't look like, you know what I mean?
And they usually die very shortly after.
Yeah. So, but Angus does not have that energy at all. So that's great for the fans. You know what I'm saying too? And yeah. So
well, they just put out an album last year that went number one.
They did, and it's nominated for a Grammy. We'll see in February if they win.
Insane.
I hope they do. I hope they beat the best new rapper out there.
I hope they beat Eminem. But it's crazy because there's so much adversity in their story as well. Because they go through the ups and downs of the commercial success, and then what happens before Malcolm dies is with Brian.
Yes,
there's a problem where he literally is going deaf. And obviously you need to be able to hear to be able to sing. So if you're in key, if you're in time, or else you're just singing into the darkness. You have no idea what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
So his doctor was literally like, yo, you got to stop or you're going to go completely deaf.
Right.
Which I totally understand. Like if you're playing thousands of shows in front of so many people, not only would the crowd noise be enough to fuck your ears up a little bit. But then you have the amps, you have the drums, you have everything, and you're
singing,
in the center.
And his singing alone, your singing at that pitch can pop your own ears after a while. Like, especially if you're doing it for 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And you're trying to do every show as if it's your last. You know what I'm saying? But
I will say, I've realized that his vocal technique must be flawless. Because... You know, he sings with a super gritty voice that you would think it's like fucking his throat up.
Yeah.
But he was doing it for so long, and his voice never really changed that much.
No.
And this is the thing that I realized that really blew my mind. His technique was so solid that his ears went out before his voice went out.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. He sent it all the way. It's the head voice he used the whole time.
Yeah, it's all the way up there.
Yeah.
And he still was just able to do it for so long without destroying his throat, without destroying his vocal cords, that to the point that his ears couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's crazy. So then, I don't remember what the chronology is of Brian being replaced by a certain singer we'll talk about in a second for a tour. And then with Phil Rudd, with the drummer, with his shit. I don't know what happened first. Which one do you want to talk about?
Let's go with Brian and Axel.
Yeah, so Brian couldn't do it anymore. And if you know anything about acdc and you've watched this, they're not going to just stop because something happened to their singer. You know what I'm saying? So
talk about a formula.
So they weren't like, oh, fuck, Brian's gone. I guess we have to stop the band. That's not what happened. They were like, oh, fuck. Like, who else could possibly do these songs well?
Who?
I know.
I know, too.
This young boy out of Indiana.
Another rock and roll legend.
Yeah.
Another one who put his foot in rock and roll's ass.
Yeah. That guy, Axl Rose, who is just a fucking madman, but in completely different ways than Bon and Brian.
Yeah.
We don't have to go into all that. We'll do a Guns N' Roses episode at some point.
Yeah.
But... he has the perfect voice to fill in.
Perfect voice.
And that must have been a legendary tour to see them.
Yeah.
Could you imagine it being one of those shows? Because he's not doing it anymore with them.
No.
Brian's back.
Yes. And that must have been great for him. They were like, well, he was really nice to us. He was super polite and everything. It's like, because he loves you. He wants to be you. Like, come on. Who's going to be mean to you guys? Like, he's like, we're your kid. Basically.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's crazy.
They're like, he showed up on time, all this stuff, and then I'm just like, well, of course he did.
Like, I can't disappoint Angus. I've been listening to Angus my whole life.
Right.
I bet he was like, yo, without acdc, like, would there have been a Guns N' Roses?
It's probably true, though. I mean, that's some really good hard rock to play when you're feeling like your stepdad's a piece of shit and you don't want to listen to him.
And you got to get out of this fucking town.
That's right.
Yeah, so Axl steps in, obviously kills it.
Uh-huh.
And then the thing that's so crazy is that Brian, I don't know exactly what happened. He got some kind of treatment, but he was able to come back.
Yeah, some nerdo calls him on the phone out of nowhere, and I'm serious, and was like, listen, if you let me meet with you, I've got some new technological finds, and I think that we can fix your hearing with technology. And that's exactly how it went down. Yep.
That's wild. I have an autograph from Brian Johnson, by the way. Did I ever tell you that?
No, you didn't, but I was staring at images of their autographs on the way here, and my eyes were like alive, so I need to see this.
It's in Florida.
Oh.
But
he's lying, y'all.
I swear to God.
I'm just kidding.
No, quick story, actually. So we used to live, when I was growing up, we lived right next to this music venue in Clearwater called Ruth Eckerd Hall.
Yeah.
Where literally, like, this was the parking lot, and, like, this was my neighborhood.
Okay.
So, like, we used to go to concerts there. Well, I didn't really all the time because I was a little too young. But my parents used to go all the time. And then there was a fence right here. And one year a hurricane blew the fence over. So we could just walk straight into the venue. So one time there was like, Brian was there doing like some kind of charity event. Yeah. Like not with acdc, like some other thing.
Yeah. And
my dad got an autograph from him and gave it to me.
You did tell me this story.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it again, though.
Next time I go home, I'll send you a picture of it.
That's cool.
If I remember.
Yeah.
You might have to remind me.
Okay.
But yeah, it exists, I swear.
Yay.
So Brian's the man.
Yeah.
He came back, but they did have to get a new drummer.
Oh, yeah.
And why is that?
Because people got problems. And they need to get it together. You can't be killing people and people dying. No.
What was it? So he hired a hitman to kill his ex or some shit? Like,
yeah.
That's what it was, right? I just know he hired a hitman to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out for him.
No.
He apparently just like went home and like his house was just crawling with cops. It's like I don't know how he thought you can't get away with that shit in 2021.
No.
Or whatever year it was. Like, come on, man.
The snitching is a come up. You know what I mean? Like, it brings you fame and notoriety, and you know that's all that matters in the world nowadays.
But it's even if he ever said anything over the phone or ever said any kind of text message or any kind of communication, like, they have that.
They have it.
They have all of that shit. Like,
honest to goodness,
you're not anonymous.
Yeah, as a really high paid rock and roller, it probably would have made more sense if you had killed her yourself, and then just freaking paid somebody to cover it up or something. You know what I mean?
Or just got the best lawyer possible.
Exactly.
OJ style.
Hey, OJ, William Shatner, Christopher Watt. How many people? There's so many.
Yeah. So he thought that he could just hire a hitman and everything would be fine, and it wasn't fine. So he's out. But they just keep going. They just never stop. That's the thing about acdc that's so kind of inspiring in a way. It really doesn't matter what's happening. They know what they're doing, and they're gonna fucking do it.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. And now here we are, 2021. They put out another album last year that went #1, and like you said, is now nominated for a Grammy. Not that we give a fuck about a Grammy, but still. I mean, just the fact that you're even still able to do this. I mean, what band has more longevity than them besides the Stones?
It's true. It's true. And this is not a lie, but it's going to sound hilarious.
Yeah.
Angus and Malcolm are actually Keith Richards' favorite guitarist. Like, he really likes them a lot.
Really?
Yes, he really
does.
That's
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, Angus is just so good. He was one of my, like, when I was, like, first starting to play guitar, he was, like, one of my top 3, like, inspirations. Like, it was the 2 Jimmys, Page and Hendrix, and then Angus. Where I was like, if I can play like any of these people, or even half as good as any of these people, then I'm doing all right.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's crazy because I never realized until recently like how important Malcolm was, because I was so just not obsessed with Angus, but it's like it's hard not to watch him.
Yeah.
Like, because even the stage presence, like, he'll be up at the front of the stage. They'll do the thing where, you know, he gets on the singer's shoulders and they walk around the crowd. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Malcolm is always in the back.
Tapping his foot, moving this way.
And Malcolm is always in the back with the drummer and the bass player. So he doesn't, like, get to shine like that.
Right.
But then when you hear them talk, it's like, yeah, Malcolm was really what held it all together.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, Angus used to depend on Malcolm for pretty much everything. Well, does this sound right? Does this lead? Does this solo sound right? Like he didn't move without Malcolm's like okay. And I mean, not that Malcolm said that was the way it was supposed to go, but that's just the relationship they had. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's your brother. Like, you want to take, you know, their advice. I mean, Malcolm's older, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to get advice from your older sibling. You know what I mean? Like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So yeah, I don't know. It's just. It's really cool because, you know, the past couple of podcasts we've done, they've kind of ended sad because they end in deaths. But this is like, there's deaths, but it's still so inspiring. Like, I don't feel sad now that we're getting to the end of the story.
No.
I feel inspired. Like, they never stopped. They knew what they wanted to do, and they just laser focused on it, no matter what happened.
Yeah.
Singer dies, whatever. Drummer murders somebody or tries to get somebody murdered, whatever. Like, we're going to keep doing this because this is what we know how to do.
Yeah.
And they do it well.
Yeah, that's all I ever enjoyed. And, like, you know, do you think that they think they've reached the top? Because it's a long way, you know.
It is a long way, and that's the thing. I feel like they probably do at this point. I mean, you're talking about Angus he seems like, you know, happy. He seems like he's in a good place. Yeah. And this is just like, I mean, this is like a psychological principle for all people in life. It's like when you're old, when you become like an old person, you either look back at your life with bitterness and you become one of those old people that you don't want to be around. They're just one of those mean old people. Yeah. Or you look back at your life and you're happy about how things have went and you're like, you know, so nice. And, you know, you meet those old people that are just the nicest people ever because they look back at their life and they're happy about it. Yeah. And I really feel like there's no way that they can be looking back at their life and not be happy with what they've done and what they've accomplished. I mean, they just did so much. They never wavered. They never stopped. And like, I mean, that's what life is really all about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's really cool. Those guys, I'll always love those guys. Don't leave us, acdc, ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's just like, I always feel like, you know, I always want to say more.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know what else there's to say. It's just like, they're so easy to love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know. They were just the best. The energy in their music is just undeniable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, and everybody's got to love it. Like, there's never a person that doesn't feel that groove. They locked into like a groove that like everybody can get with. You know what I mean?
And you know what that is? It's what I was saying before. Like, the power in their music is the simplicity.
Yeah.
Because if you make things too complicated, you get to like kind of like a Steely Dan level where like not everybody's going to understand it.
Right.
But with AC/DC, are you alive? Are you breathing? You'll probably understand it. You know what I mean? Like, you might not agree with it.
Yeah.
It might not be your life.
Right.
But you know what this is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just makes me laugh. Like, okay, this is basic. I don't know if this is going to get picked up on the mic, but this is basically every AC/DC bass line.
Yeah.
so again, this is not the band if you're looking for amazing bass lines, but that's the thing. Like, that's all you need.
Of
Sometimes
course.
That holds it down. It keeps it moving forward, and that's it. And it basically becomes the canvas for the guitars to do their thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously whatever vocalist they have at the time.
Yeah, they're just so natural at. They're so natural at it that Thunderstruck, the riff for the beginning thing for Thunderstruck, that's Angus. He was just warming up his fingers one day, and it sounded nice.
Yeah,
just warming up, huh?
That's what they say about the Sweet Child of Mine riff too.
Really?
They said that was just like a warm-up exercise that Slash used to do.
Yeah.
And then somebody was like, "What's that? I really like that." He was like, "I'm just warming up." You know what I mean? So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that was like that song, that riff is famous for being like one-handed like tapping. Like, it's all this hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like Mozart like. And I'm not even joking. Like, it really is. We're talking strings and we're talking like serious skill. Yeah, there's beer and cigarettes involved. But who says Mozart wasn't drunk all the time? Which I think he was. But like, yeah, that's like classical, that riff almost to me.
Well, that's another interesting. I mean, we don't have to get all into this, but the difference between heavy metal and classical music is a lot smaller than a lot of people would think. But we'll talk about, you know, like, I'm sure we'll do like a Metallica episode and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that is a really interesting point though. And that just goes to show like music that's good is just music that's good.
Right. That's a good that's a great way to put it.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, not to make it too simple, but again, that's the whole thing with AC/DC is the simplicity.
It is.
They said from the beginning, we want to rock and we want to rock hard. That's it. We're going to do it how we want to do it, and you're going to fucking deal with it. You're going to like it or not. We don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Because this is what we do. We're high voltage over here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then some of those album names, like, right? You just love it. Like Razor's Edge, High Voltage, Highway to Hell. Like, they just have, besides riffs, they've got punches. Like, you know what I mean? They know exactly what to say. And then they're just regular. You know, Brian's up there in a tank top and some jeans. You know, Malcolm's got the gray t-shirt and stuff. I mean, Angus, of course, he's the flair. But like,
he's the mascot.
Yeah. True. But just some regular clothes and great music. Like, you know?
Yeah. And that is the key to AC/DC success.
Yep.
Just be a regular person and do what you do very well.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why it's just great. Honestly, I feel inspired just talking about it because it's just such a great story. Like, they've gone through so much adversity.
Yeah.
They always come out stronger on the other side.
It's true.
And like, that's just a great example in life. Like, not just in music, just in anything you do, you're always going to go through highs, you're always going to go through lows.
Right.
But the important thing is to not ever get too high or too low.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And I mean that in a few different ways.
Yeah.
Right, Bon?
Oh, man.
Sorry.
Yeah. You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to go too far up. The higher the monkey climbs, the more you see his ass.
And the lower he'll fall.
Yeah.
When he loses his grip. But I don't know. Is there anything else that we should really talk about? I feel pretty good about this.
Me too. I do, and I feel like we paid homage. And this is in the metaverse. No, it's in the.
It's still called Facebook.
It's in the universe forever. So this is our homage to acdc, and a big shout out to guys who've inspired us and will definitely be inspiring more people. And this is not the last time we're calling their name out, and so Absolutely. We're so happy about that. So yeah, I think this is
so they've inspired us. If we've inspired you at all, if you've enjoyed the podcast, the best thing that you can do to show that you liked it, that you support, go to patreon.com/musicmaniacs. Help us decide what episodes we should do next. And that's pretty much it. It's been a great time. We are Sight After Dark, and we are Music Maniacs.
Yeah.
We love you.
Love you guys.
And we'll see you soon.
Later.